G'day, welcome back. In this lesson, we'll dive into the most effective exercise plans to help cuboids retain their optimum functional position once you've freed them up from their stuck state of compensation. You're going to discover 1. The physiology behind the 3 phases of soft tissue rehabilitation so you understand the evidence supporting this exercise plan. 2. The structured exercise plan that we've found to be the most effective and comprehensive for maintaining functional cuboids. And 3. The actual exercises demonstrated for you. Great news too is that it's not only us who found this structured exercise plan to be effective, but practitioners all around the world have also found these plans to be very useful. It doesn't matter what cuisine you grew up with, this will work for you too. Okay, so let's jump in. This lesson is about understanding the physiological rationale of soft tissue rehab so that your exercise plans give you and your patient the best clinical outcomes possible. It's essential to understand the physiology of soft tissue rehab because this will have a direct impact on how you use soft tissue rehabilitation when treating your cuboid patients. For example, when you introduce an exercise can be more important than what stretching or strengthening exercises you use. The old saying, timing is everything, is so true when it comes to a lot of things in life. It's especially true when it comes to exercises. If you don't get the timing of your exercises correct, this can inhibit your patient's progress. In fact, you can even make them worse, and that's not what you want to do, is it? No, of course not. This lesson will give you a comprehensive understanding of what happens when soft tissues get stressed or damaged or injured, and what happens to those tissues in their acute stages and chronic stages of recovery. The overarching principle of soft tissue rehabilitation requires 3 phases of soft tissues need to go through for optimum recovery and restoration. The 3 phases are, first, stretch, then strengthen, then stabilize. And you've got to do them in that order. Stretch, strengthen, then stabilize. When I learned this, it was a real game changer for me. It was in the mid-90s when I got hold of this book, Foot Orthoses and Other Conservative Forms of Foot Care by Thomas Michaud, chiropractor. It's really simple but crucially important. Let me read what Tom wrote. Okay. In most situations, when an individual with a mechanically malfunctioning foot presents with weak muscles, strengthening exercises should be initially avoided, since the muscles are almost always overworked and weak from fatigue. He then goes on to explain that once it has been determined that muscle weakness from fatigue is no longer a factor, strengthening exercises can then be initiated. Wise words indeed. The next factor to include in your muscle rehab is true healing. Understanding what true healing is can transform your results that you get in your clinic. When I ask practitioners all around the world, what is true healing? What their definition is, a lot of practitioners kind of scratch their heads and say things like, well, lack of symptoms or restoration of movement or function and the like. But you can get a reduction of symptoms or a restoration of movement without any healing. Over the weekend, I was watching my favourite footy team getting beaten. Now, during the game, one of the stars of the opposition team came off the ground due to an injury. I kind of muttered, yay. The commentators were opining that the player's gone for 6 weeks. 10 minutes later, the guy's back on the ground. And he's all bandaged up and no doubt feeling great after the magic injections. And then he continues to carve us up. Now, was this player truly healed? Well, I don't think so. But his symptoms and functional capabilities were certainly improved. You see, let me explain how I define true healing. True healing is the replacement of old damaged cells with new healthy cells. It's much more than just symptomatic improvement, isn't it? Make sense? Okay, look, it's important to appreciate that our bodies are on a constant quest of improvement. What I mean is the body's constantly turning over old cells and replacing them with new tissues. This replacement cycle takes time depending on the tissues involved. For example, we get a new stomach lining every 7 days. But skeletal cells, they can take up to 6 months. Now, a common tissue type we treat in the foot and ankle is collagenous tissues. In terms of cell turnover from old to new, do you know how long collagenous tissues take to turn over? Studies with radioactive isotopes show that it takes about 6 weeks. Interestingly, when a collagenous structure like a ligament gets injured, how long does it take to heal? I mean, think of a decent grade 3 ankle sprain. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the patient will be back on their feet, progressing, maybe even competing again, but full resolution of the injury generally takes about 6 weeks, doesn't it? Is that a coincidence? No, that's true healing at work. Now, skeletal muscle, takes about 10 to 12 to 14 days, depending on the research results. So let's round it out for 12 days for our purposes. Now, remember how Tom recommended stretching out fatigued muscles for 10 to 12 days? That matches the turnover time of skeletal muscle, doesn't it? Okay, so cuboid exercise plan takes place over a 6-week time frame to help work with the body's cellular turnover rate of skeletal muscle tissues and collagenous tissues. Because in the foot and leg, it's rare to have isolated muscle tissues without collagenous tissue involvement, be it ligaments, joint capsules, or fascia. For this reason, the exercise plans will be treating muscular and collagenous tissues. Having a comprehensive plan over 6 weeks will give you the best rehab plan to achieve the most thorough long-term clinical results for your patient. Make sense? Great. We started with these exercise plans over 20 years ago, but they've been refined and improved as more research and experience has come to hand. I want to make sure that you have the most leading edge exercise plans for your patients. I'm also including the actual exercise handouts we use. They too have been refined and proven to be most effective in getting maximum patient compliance. This is also essential for getting optimum results, isn't it? I mean, exercises always work better when your patients actually do them, don't they? And that's why we'll generally only give 1 or 2 exercises per session, tops. We found that compliance improves with exercises when patients can learn and master what they've been given. A lot of people can manage up to 2 exercises, but if you give 3 or more in one session, you're just asking for trouble as far as compliance goes, let me tell you. Also, you need to work with the physiology of tissue rehab that's best achieved when it's spread out over time. Remember, timing is everything. So, I hope you've downloaded the structured exercise plan that came with this lesson. Let's run through it together. We'll begin with the stretching exercises, which are firstly the perineal stretches. We've been using the dynamic version following Simon Barthold's review of the research. It's been working out just great. We also use a gentle generic stretching of the plantar tissues of the foot through a tennis ball massage routine. This is usually very pleasant for the patient because it's great, and in week 2 we're going to become a little more enthusiastic when we can add the cuboid self-mobilization using a golf ball. Now, this exercise is done sitting down, and the appropriate level of force is controlled by the patient. They find the specific tender point and then press on there, hold for 8 to 10 seconds, and then repeat that 3 times. All of these exercises are done twice daily. Morning and night is a good routine. After 2 weeks of stretching, you can introduce the strengthening exercises. We use a simple routine of heel raises for extrinsic muscles of the foot and toe scrunch for the intrinsic muscles of the foot. Now, I know there are more specific and potentially more effective strengthening exercises, but these 2 are really easy to do while cleaning your teeth or in the shower. Because patient compliance rates are very good, we continue to use these 2 strengthening exercises. Just as a side note, please don't let the simplicity of these exercises fool you. As practitioners, we sometimes make things a little more complicated than they need to be. What we need here are the right exercises at the right time, and that's really the key. So keep it simple, your patients will love you for it. Now, the third phase, stabilization, begins with a simple balancing exercise to stimulate the communication between the proprioceptors in the foot and leg and the brain. As your patient masters the balancing exercise, you can progress to making it more challenging. That's what our level 2 and level 3 balancing exercises do. They gradually increase the level of challenge. Once the 6 weeks has passed and your patient's symptoms have resolved, I then recommend they continue with just the balancing exercise for long-term maintenance. We'll suggest that they just balance on one foot while cleaning their teeth, and they can swap feet halfway through, of course. And voila, that's the whole structured exercise plan for cuboid cases. How cool is that? So to summarize, you've learnt 1, the physiology behind the 3 phases of soft tissue rehabilitation. 2, the structured exercise plan that we found to be most effective and comprehensive for maintaining functional cuboids. And 3, the actual exercises outlined for you. Okay, well, you're all set now. Hey, if you have any questions, please make sure you get in touch with me at ted@footmobilisation.com. I really look forward to hearing how well you do with this state-of-the-art exercise plan. In the next lesson, we'll cover the crucial second element to keep cuboids free for the long term. That's by using cuboid notch pads that 90% of your practitioners don't. You're about to be streets ahead of the rest, again. Until next lesson, serve with spirit, consult with care, and help more cuboids today. The physiological rationale of soft tissue rehab so that your exercise plans give you and your patient the best clinical outcomes possible. It's essential to understand the physiology of soft tissue rehab because this will have a direct impact on how you use supporting this exercise plan. 2, the structured exercise plan that we found to be the most effective and comprehensive for maintaining functional cuboids. And 3, the actual exercises demonstrated for you. Great news too, cuboids retain their optimum functional position once you've freed them up from their stuck state of compensation. You're going to discover 1, the physiology behind the 3 phases of soft tissue rehabilitation, so you understand the evidence is that it's not only us who found this structured exercise plan to be effective, but practitioners all around the world have also found these plans to be very useful. It doesn't matter what cuisine you grew up with, this will work for you too. Okay, so let's jump in. This lesson is about understanding G'day, welcome back. In this lesson, we'll dive into the most effective exercise plans to help